Hello, my name is Anna Hall and I'm Director of Operations here at RDA. I wanted to talk you through about getting started after legal restrictions lift. And I'm talking to you about this midway through July, and this is the situation as we stand. As we know with COVID, things do change rapidly, but we will give you an update if anything changes. So the situation around the COVID-19 restrictions, we believe that legal limits will be removed in England on the 19th of July. In Scotland, it's expected to be on the 9th of August. We haven't heard any specific dates from Wales or Northern Ireland, and in the Isle of Man, Jersey and Guernsey, there are currently no legal limits. This removal of legal limits means that there will be no upper limits for gatherings indoors or outdoors, and also no mandatory requirements for face coverings. However, we need to bear in mind that the Health and Safety Executive makes it very clear that workplaces, and that includes premises used by voluntary organisations, must be kept safe, even if the wider rules have changed. So we must make sure that when we're doing things, we're keeping our participants, our volunteers and our staff safe. So what we've done here is we've set out some minimum standards that we believe that groups should follow once these legal limits have been removed. And please bear in mind, this will happen at different times in different countries. So please be aware that groups can decide to continue with the protocols they already have in place, or to return to activity with higher levels of mitigation than set out below. And we're wholly supportive of this. We're simply setting out the minimum standards. If there are any reasons why you want to have higher standards in your group because of the types of your participants, because of the types of your volunteers, or the feeling that you get from your participants and volunteers, you absolutely can do so. So decisions will need to be taken around this, considering if any groups of participants who have additional requirements for mitigating COVID-19 risk require you to do more things. So a school or care home may require you, for example, to continue to wear face coverings in certain situations. So please bear this in mind. Also, you need to consider the comfort or confidence levels of participants and volunteers in the group. We don't want to remove all COVID-19 restrictions and then find that people are not confident enough to come back. We need to make sure that we are a welcoming place to be for all participants and people feel comfortable and confident to come back. The key message in all of this is to ensure that we're respecting the needs and thoughts of others. And therefore, it's vital that groups engage with their participants and volunteers to understand the different needs. And therefore, we're aware there may be different approaches for different groups. So please be aware of the practical changes that we've brought in place. So we're continuing to say that groups that are signed off must provide hand sanitizing or hot hand washing facilities. And these must be used by everybody on arrival and prior to and following RDA sessions, as well as periodically during the session. You must follow the requirements of other organisations that bring participants to RDA sessions. So I've mentioned already about schools or care homes, if these are more stringent. You must record details of all those people involved in any RDA activities and also the dates and times for track and trace purposes. And these details are to be kept for 21 days. Simple as this. Basically, if there is a positive case of anybody who's attended your group, you must be able to inform them of somebody that they've been in contact with in the previous 48 hours. And so you must keep this information. This is about keeping all of us safe and making sure people isolate who may be at risk of transmitting COVID-19. We strongly recommend that if you're coming into close contact, so less than 1 metre, you continue to wear a face covering, especially if you're coming into closer contact with an individual for a prolonged period of time. An example of this is if you're supporting someone to mount or dismount using a hoist, or if you're carriage driving and sitting alongside somebody for a prolonged period of time. In all other scenarios, face coverings are optional, but as I've said previously, please respect the thoughts and needs of others. And there may be times that you are asked to wear a face covering by your group because of this. And some groups may decide that there are certain areas and times where face coverings are required. We recommend that you sanitize tack that's frequently touched, for example, reins between participants, using a suitable sanitizer for the materials that is being used upon. We recommend that you avoid sharing equipment where you do not have to do so. We recommend that you sanitize or quarantine any items that participants wear and have to be shared, such as hats. And we recommend individuals maintain social distancing where there is no need to be any closer. So if people do not need to stand within 1 meter of each other, we really recommend that they should stand further apart. Moving on now to the paperwork. So we've made a few changes to the paperwork to try and make it a little bit more light touch, to be in step with the reduction in the required restrictions. So as a group, if you've not got back started yet, you will still need to complete a trustee checklist. This is called the Road to Restart Trustee Checklist, and this is to be signed off by National Office and sending it to groupsupport@rda.org.uk. As a group, you will have needed to complete a risk assessment, which should include COVID-19 elements even. This does not need to be sent in. We do have a COVID-19 risk assessment, a standalone one template that you can use, but there's no requirement to do so. Even though you don't need to send information into us for us to check in relation to a risk assessment, if you do need support or guidance or help, please contact us and we'll be able to help you through the process. You need to take all staff, volunteers and participants through consent information document when they first arrive at RDA. This is really important because basically it says by virtue of that individual being at the RDA session, they agree to making sure they don't turn up if they have any COVID-19 symptoms, that they don't have a positive PCR test, that they do not have a positive lateral flow test, and that if they become ill during the session, they will notify the first aid officer and they will return home to self-isolate or to undertake a test. But we no longer require a consent form to be signed. We also should regularly remind people that they've agreed through the consent information, and you may want this consent information, for example, laminated or prominently displayed, particularly if people are kind of signing in or out as they arrive at sessions. So signage, there is no mandatory requirement for zoning of indoor space. So as legal restrictions are removed, you won't need to worry about this so much. However, you may want to consider this and for example, one-way systems as well, to make sure there is sufficient space to respect the needs of others. You should put signage up if you're planning to enforce any particular protocols or mitigation, for example, hand sanitizing. And we will have some posters and we're going to be updating these on the My RDA website, so you can actually use these new posters. But really importantly, if you've already got started, you should remove any signage that's no longer going to be enforced in your group. So what we don't want to do is have any posters or anything around that people learn to ignore. We also need to make sure you ensure all volunteers know if there are different rules for different groups of people. For example, a school group that may have different mitigation and protocols in place. And finally, further help. There is huge amount of support where over 55% of groups have opened back up again and restarted. And so please get in contact with your local group or with any group who's been through this process for help and advice. There is a list of groups open on the Road to Restart page on the My RDA website. There is support available from your counties and regions. Don't forget regional chair, regional coach, county coach, as well as the equine support, the regional vet and the regional equine advisor. But also we're here to help, National Office, and we've been ably supported by the Road to Restart working group. If you've got any questions or queries, the best way to contact us is using the group support email, which is simply groupsupport@rda.org.uk. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you're looking forward to getting started. Thank you very much.